you know, somebody's trying to jaywalk in front of me, I just run them down. I mean,
Really?
Some stars enter Hollywood with grand dreams, dedicating their youth to chasing the spotlight. But Susan Dey was completely different. As a teenage girl living in suburban New York, the last thing she thought about was becoming a famous actress. Susan was born on December 10, 1952, in Illinois, and had a difficult childhood. At the age of 8, she lost her mother to illness. That loss left a deep mark on the soul of an already quiet and introverted girl. Those who knew Susan as a teenager remember her as a quiet girl who preferred observing rather than being the center of attention. No one could have imagined that this shy girl would one day become one of the most familiar faces on American television. The turning point came by a very coincidence. Susan's stepmother sent her photos to a modeling agency in New York. In a short time, Susan was accepted as a teen model and began appearing in youth magazines. Her natural beauty, long hair, blue eyes, and a friendly smile quickly attracted attention. However, despite being familiar with the camera, Susan had never considered acting. She had never taken acting classes, never performed on a school stage, and never imagined herself becoming a television star. Then, at age 17, an unexpected opportunity arose. An audition was held for a new television series about a musical family traveling across America. Susan participated almost purely out of curiosity, without experience, without preparation, and without any expectations. But it was precisely this naturalness that made her stand out among hundreds of other applicants. The producers saw in Susan what they were looking for, a genuine, approachable young woman who perfectly suited the character of Laurie Partridge. After just one audition, Susan Dey's life changed forever. What she didn't know then was that the door that had just opened would lead her to nationwide fame in America, but also bring with it pressures and challenges that a teenage girl was never ready to face. When the Partridge Family aired in the fall of 1970, no one could have predicted the level of success the show would achieve. In a short time, the show became a phenomenon on American television. Millions of families watched the show every week. The show's songs climbed the music charts, and the young cast quickly became idols for an entire generation. Among them, Susan Dey emerged as the ideal American girl. Playing the intelligent, gentle, and lovable Laurie Partridge, she appeared on the covers of countless teen magazines and was beloved by audiences across the country. But while the public saw a young girl enjoying a dream life, the reality behind the scenes was quite different. Fame came too quickly for a 17-year-old girl. From an ordinary suburban girl, Susan suddenly became the object of scrutiny down to the smallest detail. Everything from her hair and face to her weight became a subject of judgment. The rigorous standards of the modeling industry that she had once endured continued to haunt her on set. Gradually, Susan began to believe that she had to be even thinner to maintain a perfect public image. She ate less and less, then almost nothing at all for long periods. This became so severe that her weight dropped to an alarming level. Sadly, in the early 1970s, anorexia wasn't as well understood as it is today. Many people noticed Susan's problem but didn't really know how to help her. While battling the pressures of her appearance, Susan also harbored another secret she dared not reveal: her feelings for David Cassidy, the actor who played her brother Keith Partridge. David was not only the biggest star of the show, but also the one who helped Susan adapt to her new life in Hollywood. They spent a lot of time together, attending events and sharing the busy days of fame. For Susan, that friendship gradually blossomed into love. But with David, things were different. He saw her more as a close younger sister than a lover. That truth ultimately broke Susan's heart. Years later, when private details about their relationship were revealed in David Cassidy's memoir without her consent, the old wound was torn open again. It wasn't just disappointment in love, but also the loss of a friendship that Susan had considered one of the most important things in her life. When the Partridge Family ended in 1974, Susan Dey was only 21 years old. For many young actors, becoming the star of a hit television show could be the perfect springboard to new heights. But for Susan, that success inadvertently became an invisible cage. Millions of viewers were so accustomed to the image of Laurie Partridge, gentle, innocent, and lovable, that they couldn't imagine her in any other role. Producers and casting directors thought so too. Wherever Susan appeared, the name Laurie Partridge always preceded her. And that was the hardest battle of her career. Throughout the late 1970s, Susan worked tirelessly. She appeared in television shows, landed guest roles in many popular series, and tried her hand at completely different characters. Instead of continuing to play the familiar sweet and innocent girls, Susan actively sought out roles with more psychological depth, characters with more trauma and darker sides. Critics began to recognize her true talent, but Hollywood hesitated. Despite working hard, Susan couldn't make a breakthrough big enough to change how the industry perceived her. During that time, her personal life also changed. Susan married her agent, Leonard Hershen, and became the mother of a baby girl. But even with her own family, she didn't give up her dream of being recognized as a serious actress. As the years passed, big opportunities came slowly. At times, Susan's career seemed stuck between two worlds, too famous to be forgotten, but not successful enough to be redefined. Then the final turning point came in 1986, when Susan landed the role of Grace Van Owen in the legal drama series L.A. Law. This was no longer the lovable teenage girl of the 1970s. Grace was a strong, intelligent, ambitious prosecutor, and sometimes made mistakes, just like any real person. For the first time, audiences saw a completely different Susan Dey. Her nuanced and mature performance quickly won over critics. Emmy nominations followed, then a string of Golden Globe nominations. And then, in 1988, after more than a decade of struggling to break free from her old image, Susan Dey stepped onto the stage to accept the Golden Globe for Best Actress. It wasn't just a personal victory. It was the moment she proved to Hollywood that she was no longer Laurie Partridge. She had become a true actress, recognized for her talent. By the late 1980s, Susan Dey had finally achieved what she had pursued for over a decade. After years of being seen as America's Laurie Partridge, she proved her talent with her role in L.A. Law and became one of the most respected actresses on the small screen. Ironically, just as her career seemed to be at its peak, new setbacks began to appear. This time, they didn't stem from being typecast or career failures, but from a prolonged weariness with the very world she had dedicated almost her entire life to serving. In the early 1990s, as L.A. Law drew to a close, Susan moved on to a new project called Love and War. This was seen as an opportunity to maintain her status as a television star. However, things didn't go as expected. After a short time, the producers decided to replace her with another actress, citing a lack of chemistry with her co-star. To the public, it was just a normal casting decision, but for Susan, it was a devastating blow to the confidence she had worked so hard to build over years of fighting for recognition. Around the same time, news began to surface about her struggles with alcohol. As someone who always kept her private life discreet, Susan was deeply upset to see her personal issues become a topic of public discussion. Instead of explaining or defending her image, she chose what she always did best: silence. In an industry where everyone constantly seeks attention, Susan increasingly withdrew from the spotlight. Although she continued to participate in some television projects in the following years, her appearances became increasingly infrequent. In 2002, Susan Dey completed her final acting role. Remarkably, she didn't announce her retirement, give a farewell interview, or write a memoir like many other stars. She simply stepped back, one step at a time, until she completely disappeared from the entertainment world. In the years that followed, Susan declined to attend the Partridge Family reunions, stayed away from Hollywood events, and rarely appeared in the media. Instead, she dedicated her time to her family, her private life, and the philanthropic activities she truly cared about. This is what makes Susan Dey's story so unique. Many call it a decline or a mysterious disappearance. But perhaps the truth is much simpler. After decades under the public eye, Susan finally chose what she had always longed for since she was a shy girl in Illinois: a peaceful life of her own. She didn't leave Hollywood because of failure. She left because she found something more important than fame. And perhaps that's the greatest victory in Susan Dey's life.